Next question is for you, talking about school safety. It's been a priority of the governor, and Superintendent of Education Molly Spearman says that based on conversations that she's had with SLED Chief Mark Keel, local districts and law enforcement officials, that a response to a school shooting like Uvalde would not happen in South Carolina. Do you feel that schools are safe, and do we need to do more than just put an officer in every school?
Absolutely. When you talk about school safety, there is not one thing that is going to be where you say, oh, this is what's going to solve that problem. You know, school safety it's a spider web where you've got to look at addressing, you know, your class sizes, right? You've got to have smaller class sizes so teachers have the opportunity to build relationships. You've got to address, you know, the anxiety and the mental health pieces of it. You've got to address the school building itself. Is the school safe? Are there locks on doors? Are there ways for people to get into the school buildings? But then also, honestly, you've got to address gun responsibility, and you've got to address, you know, making sure that gun owners are, you know, following that, you know, protecting people from access to guns. So it's all of us. Again, that's a society problem that's coming into schools. I think that school resource officers can be helpful if they are there in the capacity of building relationships. That's the key when you look at what is going around and why kids become, you know, do what they do. It's because of a reaction to their own learning environment. When we look at school shooters, you know, they weren't successful academically. So we've got to make sure that our students are successful academically. All of that is going to work to creating safer schools, but it's not this is going to solve the problem and that's it.
Ms. Weaver, school safety.
Well, to be clear, taking guns away from law-abiding citizens will not make our schools safer. And so I, unlike my opponent, reject calls for new gun restrictions on law-abiding citizens. That makes absolutely no sense. In terms of how we keep our schools safe, you know, the recent swatting incidents, I was speaking to parents and teachers who were in a school where one of them happened, and the panic that they described to me of, first of all, being in the school and in that lockdown situation, and then secondly, of a parent being away from their child. I mean, it's visceral. It really is visceral. And I'd like to commend my opponent for the work that she does, because I know her school was one of those schools that experienced one of those incidents. And I know that's a very, very difficult thing to have to live through. But how do we solve this at the state level? Well, I think we do have to make sure that we have an SRO in every school. We've made great progress in that direction over the last few years with the General Assembly fully funding them. Now we just have to find the people. We have changed the restrictions in terms of allowing retired law enforcement officers to serve as SROs now without impacting their pensions. That's another great common sense step forward. I'd love to see if there's a way for us to engage our retired veterans. They've answered the call to service once. I think they would answer it again to help keep our students and our teachers safe. But ultimately, this again comes back to leadership. How are we going to work together with other state agencies and law enforcement in order to make sure that our schools are safe? And that takes relationship building and leadership.
Thank you, Ms. Weaver. Did you want a rebuttal there, Lisa? Yes. Okay.
I think that it is very typical of taking what I said out of context. When I talk about gun responsibility, I'm not talking about taking guns away. I think that there are definitely, we can decrease the access to assault rifles. I think that we can be, you know, much more considerate in who has access to guns and how they get access. Having said that, yeah, my school was one of the ones that was swatted, and that is a feeling like no other. That is a feeling that my opponent will never know because she has never been in schools and been at that level. So it's hard for me to sit there and listen to the untruths that are spoken, but also to assume that you know what that is like. Having been in that experience, I feel that we really need to look at all of those issues.